Welcome to the next section of your windshield repair certification program, safety and preparation. And in this portion, we're going to focus on safety equipment. As you notice here, I already have my windshield repair safety gloves on. And you definitely want to use your windshield repair safety gloves at all times during the repair process. Windshield repair resin can have a negative impact on your skin, so using gloves from the very beginning of your repair to the very end, even when you're going to dispose of paper towels and other materials that may have resin present, you would want to keep your gloves on your hands at all times during that process. Now you'll also notice here that we have some safety goggles. Safety goggles are an important part of your repair equipment. They accomplish several things. Number one, they can prevent little shards of glass when you're cleaning out the pit from popping up into your eye, resin from getting into your eye. In addition to that, they block out 100% of the UV. So, if you're looking at the UV light from a certain angle or you're standing out in the sunlight, that's also an important component of your safety equipment. The other thing we want to mention is keeping all of your windshield repair equipment, both razor blades, chemicals, resins, etc., in a place that they cannot be accessed by children. So that's just a brief overview of the safety equipment that you would want to use during every single windshield repair that you do. The next section in our safety and prep portion of our certification training is prepping your equipment. So we're going to go through just briefly setting up our injector for the day's worth of use. And we'll start with the Provac Zoom injector and kind of how to break it apart and how to set it up and prep it for the entire day's worth of repairs. So the first thing is, as we mentioned before, the cap is reverse threaded. So spinning the cap off of the body until it disengages and then pulling it apart. And once we do that, you'll notice we have, again, those two seals, the upper seal and the lower seal. And then, of course, we have the upper chamber, and then we have the lower chamber, which is inside of here. So both of those chambers and seals must be lubed before we start the repair process. So we're going to show you how to go about doing that. The first thing we're going to do is grab just a tiny bit of injector seal lube. And injector seal lube will be used only on the upper seal. Very important that we not confuse that. Injector seal lube should never be used on the lower seal, only on the upper seal. So we're just going to put just a small amount on the upper seal and a small amount on the upper chamber. And we'll go ahead and close our injector seal lube up. And now we're going to lube up our lower piston seal. And with that lower piston seal, what we're going to do is just do maybe a half a drop or so of resin. Whichever resin you choose there is fine. Just kind of drop it over the surface and kind of let it work its way around the seal. So now both of the seals have been lubricated. So what we're going to do is just spin the cap down until it contacts the upper seal, kind of hold it in place there, and then thread the body onto the cap. Again, it's reverse threaded, so you don't want to turn it in kind of a counterintuitive fashion until it just kind of tightens in place. Now at this point, we would just thread the piston of the injector up and down, and that will help to lubricate both of the chambers, both the upper chamber and the lower chamber. So now our Zoom will be ready to start doing a repair. We also can do one step here to prepare our tripod stand, and that is just putting a small amount of this sealant, which is called suction cup sealant, onto the suction cups. And probably the best and most effective way to do this is to put about 1 drop on your suction cup and then use your gloved finger to spread around a little bit of that lubricant onto each of the suction cups. Depending on the weather, this may last for several repairs or maybe just one repair. You may have to lubricate it again, or you can leave it as so. Now while we're at it, let's also show you kind of how to disassemble and how to prep your EcoVac. The EcoVac's function is, again, very similar, but there is one core difference, and that is that we'll have to spin this set screw out and remove it from the injector altogether, then separate the body and follow the steps that we already did, which is lubricating the upper piston with injector seal lube and the lower piston with a drop of resin. When you go to reinstall or reconnect your EcoVac, it's important to line up the pilot hole here for the set screw, both on the cap as well as on the body. Just kind of connect those up here, make sure that that hole is lined up, and then that set screw just threads into that hole. If you notice that the set screw is kind of sticking out a little bit, it may be that it has not contacted inside the thread channel, in which case you would just kind of turn the handle a little bit and then tighten it in a little bit further. But you just want to make sure that it is contacting the threads and it can thread upwards and downwards, again just to lubricate both chambers. Now we are ready to repair with both our Ecovac and our Zoom injector. The next portion under safety and preparation is prepping the vehicle. What we mean by that, there are several factors. One of the real key factors is the air temperature outside, and of course the temperature of the glass itself too. So if you're working in a warm climate, you may want to get the vehicle, if possible, in the shade. That's always a good advantage. And do whatever you can to get the temperature of the glass down to an ambient range. One of the safe ways to do that is to turn the air conditioning on without the defrost necessarily, but maybe just blowing into the vehicle for a few minutes until the general temperature inside the vehicle comes down, and the temperature of the glass should drop too. And you want to get it down to an ambient temperature range, ideally somewhere in the mid 70s up to the low 80s or mid 80s in order to work on the glass in an ideal scenario. And alternatively, if you're working in a very cold climate, the same principles would apply. You're trying to get the vehicle warmed up on the inside without using the defrost necessarily, but heating up the vehicle on the inside until the ambient temperature of the glass has gotten up to somewhere in a little bit higher range in order to start your repair. Another thing to factor into is where is the vehicle parked. Outside of just being parked in the shade, if that's possible at all, the other thing to consider is parking it on even ground. If the vehicle is slightly or dramatically off kilter in the place that it's parked, it could cause some extra torque or flexing to the windshield, which is a detriment when you're trying to repair without the repair spreading during the process. So definitely look at that as a factor. Beyond that too, a couple of the things to consider is just of course protecting the vehicle in general, being aware of things like your belt buckle, possibly your keys, or anything else that could scratch the vehicle as you're moving around the windshield and accessing the repair inside and out of the vehicle. In particular, when it comes to your windshield repair kit case, regardless of which kit case you're using, you would want to avoid putting the kit directly on the vehicle or on the vehicle hood. Instead, you maybe use a hood protector of some sort, which Glasswell does provide in some of our kits, or in some cases, in some of the Glasswell kits, you'll also notice that they may have a foam insert. And that foam insert can also be used as kind of a working surface that could be set on the hood of the vehicle or on the top of the vehicle. So some things to be aware of in regards to keeping the vehicle safe and protected. In this portion of safety and prep, we want to talk about a really important part, which is prepping your customer, creating the proper expectation and awareness. And the first thing to look at is, as you're analyzing the brake, are there any contaminants? Is the brake real dirty? Maybe even asking the customer, was the glass coated since the glass broke? Could there be Rain-X or some other coating inside of the brake? And understanding those things will help you to create the proper expectation for your customer. What can they expect? Will they get a full 70 to 90% optical clarity back, which is typically what we would expect? Or if there's extra contaminants in the brake, might that be affected by that? Also, it's always a good idea to have on your invoice a disclaimer that makes your customer aware of the fact that if the glass were, or if the repair were to fail during the repair process or down the road, that you are not responsible for the cost of the windshield. You're simply responsible for the cost of your service. So that's always a good thing to communicate with your customer as well. In addition, it might be good to create some awareness with your customer as far as some of the benefits of repair, the ability to avoid possible calibration of their safety system, the structural integrity of the vehicle, the original factory bond, and maybe even educating them on the environmental impact of repair versus replacement.